Everybody, I have an announcement to make!
That's terrible. So guys, I'm gonna review Cloverfield Paradox, right? But right after I'm done this review, you're gonna be able to see that new short film that I'm working on. That's right when you're done this video, I'm gonna upload that short and you all are gonna see it right after the video's done being watched. You're gonna be able to see my short.
Yes!
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You're probably not even done the short yet. It probably needs a lot of polishing to do. And I say, screw you! I want to get this short out because I want to do an excellent marketing thing that surprises people. Yes! Ugh! I'm kidding. I was just making fun of the Cloverfield Paradox marketing. You're probably not going to see that short until way later this month. You can have a screenshot though. There you go. Cloverfield Paradox is already out. This movie is on Netflix. It's kind of crazy that I'm even saying that. That's still blowing my mind because a long time ago, like before 2017 even started, they announced that we're making a new Cloverfield movie called God Particle, and given how much I liked the first two movies, I was so excited for it. And then God Particle got delayed, and there was all these weird rumors revolving around this movie about how maybe it'll be a Netflix movie or something. Like maybe it'll be direct to Netflix, and I was like, what? Why can't it just be theatrical? That's kind of scary. But during the Super Bowl, you saw the Solo: A Star Wars Story teaser, you saw the Avengers TV spot, you saw the Mission Impossibles, and then you saw a Cloverfield trailer saying that the frickin' movie is gonna be on Netflix right after the Super Bowl. Me and my friends were so excited when this was announced. Our minds were literally blown. The fact that Cloverfield had blown our minds with marketing again, literally just having a Cloverfield movie on Netflix right after the Super Bowl ended, that's unprecedented. What other movie has done something like that? Both Cloverfield movies have had really unique marketing that surprises you and blows your mind, but this was probably the biggest, huge marketing thing that a Cloverfield movie has ever had. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be able to go home from school and be able to watch a Cloverfield movie and hopefully it'll be good? Yes, I can't wait to get back into this universe. The first Cloverfield movie was a really impressive found footage movie. It's not like the best movie ever made, but it is a really good found footage movie. It's probably one of the best out there. This movie had so many impressive found footage sequences in it, and it really caught your attention because there was so many mysteries after the movie ended. It was like, oh my gosh, why are there monsters? Why is any of this happening? What is this? And there was so much potential to have more Cloverfield movies to flesh out why the monsters were there. And then we got 10 Cloverfield Lane, which answered no questions about the first movie that we were wondering, but it was still great. It was barely even a Cloverfield movie, actually. It's not really a Cloverfield movie until the very end. The whole rest of the movie is just this contained movie with a crazy guy and people trying to escape, and it is great. I love 10 Cloverfield Lane. It was one of my favorite movies of 2016. I could still watch that today and still be mind blown about that movie, and there would still be more things that I noticed. Even without the Cloverfield name attached to it, it would still be a great movie. Sure, the ending isn't all that great, but the rest of the movie leading up to that is pretty much perfection, honestly. It is such a fantastic movie. Of course, after those two movies, I'm going to be excited about Cloverfield Paradox, and this movie is probably one of the most disappointing movies that I've ever seen. This movie wasn't good. I'm sorry. I can understand if people do like it. I'm sure you can defend it, but at the same time, I'm just going to be like, yeah, come on. this movie is bad. What is Cloverfield Paradox about? Well, again, this is basically a whole different genre from 10 Cloverfield Lane and the first Cloverfield. Each Cloverfield movie seems to be going into a new genre and doing something very fresh, which I really respect about this franchise. It's one of the things I like about this movie, how it does a completely different genre and tries to do something different from the other two movies. It's not regurgitating the first Cloverfield over and over again. Every entry has been fresh. Cloverfield Paradox is basically about how there's this crew in space. There's this main character, woman character, and she has her husband down in space, and she had a very tragic past where her kids passed away, and it was very sad, and she's in space now with these people, and they're trying to basically figure out how to stop world hunger, I guess. World problems. They're trying to figure out how to do something in space to stop these things. It's so hard to explain this movie. It is such a weird, bizarre movie, and in a lot of ways, not in a good way. The first two Cloverfield movies were very mysterious. They were very different and mysterious, and they had you asking a lot of questions. Cloverfield Paradox has you asking so many questions that it's kind of frustrating. Because this movie is so... like, there's so many scenes and events that happen in this movie that just have no context. Like, there's barely even a story. They're all in space and they're a crew, and then these crazy things start to happen that they don't really explain it to you. It just kind of, crazy things just start to happen out of nowhere. It reminded me in a lot of ways of It Comes at Night, because It Comes at Night is a very well-made movie. I think it's betterly made than Cloverfield Paradox is by far. But It Comes at Night is a very well-made movie, but there's so much open that it's just kind of frustrating. They have no context to anything, so every event that happens in that movie is just kind of tensionless. They have really well-made scenes that could have been tensionless if there was a context there and a story. But instead you're just kind of sitting there going like, yeah, this scene's very well made, but I don't really care about the characters and I don't care about what's going on because it's all just nonsense. Because the director just withheld information that he never actually explained in the movie. I'm all for having a movie be, like, vague and not answer questions for you. I'm all for a movie making you think and having you fill in the gaps yourself. But with this movie, there's so many possibilities for each of the things that have no context that you just kind of like, you can't really give yourself a concrete answer because there's just so many vast possibilities to the point where it's just kind of frustrating and you don't know what the intention of the director or the writer was. I really hope this makes sense. It's probably not, but it's hard to explain this movie. It is so, like, this is one of the hardest to explain movies ever. You don't really care about anything that's going on in Cloverfield Paradox. It has like a concept that could be interesting, I guess, but at the same time the concept just kind of ruins like what I really liked about the other two Cloverfield movies, because at the end of 10 Cloverfield Lane it kind of implies that it's another like perspective of the same event that the first one was about, but it's just like from different people and a different point of view, and I really like that. But Cloverfield Paradox kind of gets rid of that possibility and implies something else that I wasn't on board with at all. This was marketed as the movie that would fill in the gaps between 10 Cloverfield Lane and the first Cloverfield. It kind of tells you what the whole Cloverfield universe is about and how the movies exist, and I don't really like the answer we were given at all. Like, it just felt like it overly complicated things. That was the whole movie. It just overly complicated a universe that could have been really cool. But moving that aside, let's talk about the characters and the technical aspects of Cloverfield Paradox. There are no characters. There are literally no characters. I mean, there is, but they are so cookie cutter and disposable, and some of them are just straight up annoying, actually. Like, they are so bad, honestly. I was so disappointed. Because 10 Cloverfield Lane, at its core, was a character study. It studied Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character. It studied John Goodman's character. That was what the movie was about. The movie was about the characters. And then Cloverfield Paradox is so concerned with doing this pretentious, complicated stuff for this universe that it completely pushed the characters aside. The main character is kind of the cliche, like, oh, I have my family at home and I'm sad because my kids died and I want to get back to my husband. Like, have we never seen that in a movie before? Like, there's, You don't get a sense of any of the characters' personalities. They're just people. Like, Daniel Bruhl is an actor I really liked. I liked him a lot in Captain America Civil War and that, like, that movie that was in a bunch of different language that was like a World War I movie. It was about, like, Christmas or something. I can't remember the name. Daniel Bruhl is a really good actor. I think if he's put it in a great movie, he could do a really good job. But his character is also just kind of like, what is he? He has no character at all. Like, there's nothing interesting about him in the slightest. There's this one character that's played by an actor that looks a lot like Steven Spielberg. I have no idea what his name is, but he was kind of supposed to be the comic relief of this movie, I guess. So they tried to do something there, but at the same time, every time he tried to be funny, it was so cringe. Like, he'll say things that are so immature and dumb, and it was just really annoying. Like, the humor in 10 Cloverfield Lane was great. Like, every time they tried to do humor there, it worked so well, and having this bumbling idiot just walk around saying things isn't funny. Like, this is one part where this drastic thing happens to him. Like, if this happened to a normal person, they would be so freaked out, they would be so in shock. Instead, the guy's just, like, making jokes the whole time that this thing is happening, and it's just like, what were the writers thinking? How did J.J. Abrams even sign off on this movie? Like, J.J. Abrams is such a great writer, and he's such a great filmmaker. I don't even, like, I'm convinced that the studio and J.J. Abrams were so, like, they were realizing how bad this movie was that they just put it into Netflix, even though this is an integral movie in the Cloverfield universe because it sets up, like, all these alternate dimensions and things like that. And I don't know if it has to do with being on Netflix, but this movie's so short. Like, they tried to cram in so many things into one movie. I think one of the reasons the characters are not even characters, like they're so bad that they aren't even characters, I think one of the reasons that is because they tried to cram so much stuff into a Netflix movie. Maybe Netflix movies have to be shorter than average theatrical movies or something. I don't know, because so many things in this movie were rushed. Like, there's not a scene where the characters just kind of like sit down and talk about things. There's not a single scene where they're fleshed out or anything. They're just there. I can say the acting is fine from a few people, like some people do an admirable job, but then there are some actors like the Spielberg looking guy that I mentioned. He can't act at all. Like, he can't act. I don't know if it's the director's fault or his fault or what, but he can't act in this movie. And then there's also like the Russian guy who I thought was very cheesy and couldn't act either. And there's also so many shoehorned in scenes where people just give exposition. Like, they're just like talking and they're like, yeah, this is why this is happening and that's why that's happening. Like, things that you should be able to piece into your head, but instead it's just like, or it could have been told in a much better way. But they just have to shoehorn in these expositional scenes and it's like, we don't care. There are some good things about Cloverfield Paradox, though. Like, this isn't the worst movie ever made. Like, I usually go through positives first, but I guess I just decided to get the negative out of the way this time. So I'm gonna go through positives now. Like I said, the acting is admirable from some people, and the special effects are very good. They look like it looks like a theatrical movie. This movie could have been released in theaters if they wanted to, but they were probably like, yeah, this movie's so bad that we don't want to release it in theaters. Everything technically with this movie all looks great. Like, it definitely looks like a theatrical movie, and I can really admire that because this movie looks very good. Like, that's a thing in it, I guess. The cinematography is also pretty good, and there's like a few cool scenes, but other than that, Cloverfield Paradox is just a movie that's so overly complicated to the point where it's frustrating. So many scenes have no context, and it has this whole thing that's going to be introduced in the Cloverfield universe that's just like, we don't want this. Like, why can't it be the way they set up in the first two movies? We don't want this overly complicated stuff. The last shot of this movie makes zero sense. It's so hard to talk about this movie, so I would recommend watching Chris Stuckman's review, because basically everything he said in that review, I agree with. I'm gonna give Cloverfield Paradox a C-. This movie was endlessly disappointing. I'm not even kidding. While I watched this movie, I just wanted it to end. I was honestly really pissed off, because this is the movie that they were marketing so well in the Super Bowl, and this was the movie that they were hyping up. Alright guys, thanks for watching my review of Cloverfield Paradox. Be sure to like this video if you liked it. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.